There we go. Okay. Oh, now my kitty moved. All right, guys. Welcome back. We are reading Recipes of Life from Free Poker again today. By Jay Jeggerson and Matt Goodwin. So, been an interesting ride already. All right, so here we go. After Christmas games at the mile, Big Slick and I decided that the passing days were taking their sweet time. We were ready for Sam's game. It didn't matter if we won or not, and as Slick was fond of saying no tears, the privilege of being invited to Sam's and Ingrid's place was not lost on us, and meeting his friends outside of the bar games we played was huge. No one, and I mean no one, had ever been invited to these games from the Miracle Mile or any of the home games Sam and Ingrid attended. Big Slick drove us to the game that night in his Chevy. It was big and comfortable, unlike my Jeep. We pulled up to a typical home in Highlands Ranch, parked, got out, and brought our goodies in with us. Slick had his Oreo cookies as a nod to the movie Rounders, and I had made apple pie. Sam greeted us at the door and showed us in. Ingrid was busy finishing up some snacks, and several of their friends were already there. Sam introduced us to his friends with first names only and briefly explained how they knew each other. Several were younger veterans, one with a very haunted look. There was Joe, Henry, and Bill. Bill wasn't friendly, but wasn't unfriendly either. Sam explained that he had a very hard time in country and was never the same as he was previously. They knew each other since childhood, and Sam did everything he could to help him out. Well, that would be some of the issues. Okay. Holding. Huh. Okay, so that's good to know. So Twitch is cutting in and out, which is part of my issue. All right. So Joe and Henry were friends from the neighborhood, and several other people showed up. All friendly, but wary of the new players. Sam introduced everyone with a laugh, telling them we would give them a run for their money. Ingrid called out and let us know all the snacks were ready to go. Everyone else piled into the kitchen like it was the cow hall at boot camp. Slick and I took our time, got our plates, and started filling them. Okay, give me one more second, guys. Let's see if we can get maybe the stream back. And that's a nope. Okay. So that tells me a lot. We soon discovered that one plate would not be enough. Ingrid's snacks were thin sliced prime rib on crackers with horseradish on the side, chicken skewers with peppers, and a homemade jalapeno barbecue sauce. The flair was rounded out with crackers, cheese, and desserts in plenty. The Oreos made their way to the poker table. Poker table. Okay. Trying to figure some things out. So, hopefully it'll cooperate. I think I figured some things out. In plenty, the Oreos made their way to the poker table. After dinner, we sat down, gave our cash to Ingrid, and counted out the chips. Slick broke the ice by dealing first. The game was long and interspaced with jokes, stories, and some playful banter. I couldn't stop smiling, so they started calling me Smiley, unless I lost a hand, and then I got a hard time for frowning. Slick and I fit right in with the group, and we all played pretty well. About 3 hours in, Sam was up more than the rest of us, with me in second. We decided a snack break and was in order, and the Oreos were opened. Hi guys. Had some technical difficulties. I don't know if I'm still am. So yeah, little things still good to know. But hi. We're yeah. Okay. So here we go. A round of stories were told while we were refilling our plates. Then it was back to business. A couple of hands really stood out that night. Bill had gone all in with a flop of 275. I had a 5-6 and called him. We turned our cards over and it was looking good for Bill with his 5-7. The turn was a queen, but the river was 7. I had to buy back in, and Bill smiled a genuine smile at his fortune. Sam noted, and his smile was just as big. It was worth losing $100 and buying in with another. The other memorable hand of the night was between Sam and Henry. They were being quite jovial about it, but we could sense an underlying current of tension. We were all in the hand, and the flop came Queen King 9, all unsuited. Check, check. Then Sam bet. It was about 3 BB, 3 times the blind, and so not out of line. Henry's eyebrows shot up. Joe shook his head and folded out of turn. Slick called, and Bill folded as well. I looked at Slick and folded my hand, raising my eyebrows as I did. The flop was a jack, and Sam bet again. Slick caught on and threw his cards in the middle, content to let Sam and Henry play this out. Henry smiled and raised the bet, and Sam frowned, but called him. The river came as a queen, and Sam eagerly pushed his chips in, loudly proclaiming all in. Henry chuckled, looked at his cards, and said, "Okay, Sam, you get it this time," and folded. Sam pulled the chips to him gleefully, leaving Slick and I to wonder what had just happened. The rest of the night was a good time. Bill smiled more than I think Sam had seen in a long time. Ingrid kept us fed like we were in a 5-star Michelin restaurant. It was all great except I lost both of my hundreds. Sam and Ingrid thanked us for coming and let us know we were invited any time game night or not. We went to several more games at Sam and Ingrid's before we had to say our final goodbyes to Sam. The Miracle Mile had a stage and sometimes hosted karaoke or a live band. It turned out that a co-worker of Slick's was the lead singer in a local band, and she was telling everyone at work that her band would be playing at the Miracle Mile on Saturday night. Hearing this, Slick let it slip that he sometimes played cards at the Miracle Mile on Thursday nights. This was surprising since she generally did not like talking about his card playing at the workplace. She said, "You have to go so you can see me play live, especially since you know the Miracle Mile." He rarely talked to her at work and didn't want to go, but she was making a big deal of it. When he explained the circumstances to me, I would have been interested if she were single, but Slick said his coworker was a pretty good singer, and it would be fun to see what the Miracle Mile looked like on a Saturday night, without the poker players. We showed up early to get a good seat. The stage and dance floor weren't that big, but it was mostly the dreaded parking situation on Saturday night in downtown Littleton. As we walked in, we were surprised to see a lot of poker players at the bar, playing darts or getting ready to watch the band. Slick and I said hi to many of them, noting that it was different to see them outside of poker night, since we were all sitting at normal tables and not around the poker tables. Slick's coworker came out and started singing the usual cover songs: Tom Petty, Billy Joel, Elton John. There was nothing wrong with their music, but we aren't really into just sitting at a bar and listening to music from the 70s and 80s. Spotify is a better choice. Slick's coworker did not acknowledge us at all until way into their first set. She gave Slick a nod, not a smile, and a nod, like "Thank you for being here." It was an upward head nod. "I am really cooler than you, and the only reason I acknowledge your existence is because I have to." Slick leaned over and said, "I will introduce you at the break." The break did not come soon enough, and when it did, she went immediately to a table filled with her friends and ignored Slick. After the break, she headed back toward the stage with zero intent of saying hi. Slick looked at me and said, you are a singer for a band playing at the Miracle Mile, and too good to say hi to us. Well, la dee freaking da, in his best Chris Farley voice. This was way out of character for Slick, so I knew he was really pissed off. Slick said I will be right back. He went straight to the bar manager and saw the bar manager shaking his head up and down and smiling. Slick then went to a couple of tables and talked to the other poker players. Within 5 minutes, the bar manager had a poker table set up in the back corner of the bar with some chips and a couple decks of cards. The poker players grabbed their drink, and we had 8 players ready to play a game. Of course, there was no gambling at the mile, so it was just for fun. The fact that we had all met on the same side of the bar and exchanged money before we went home is just a coincidence. At the next break, she went straight to her friend's table, but seemed to be looking for someone in the audience. She finally spotted Slick in the corner with the rest of us playing a game of poker. She looked confused and a bit pissed that we would be ignoring her like that. She made eye contact with Slick, and he gave her the same upward nod. I knew he was saying, yeah, you're in a band, but you're not important enough for us to sit there and just watch. We have better things to do. I don't know what the outcome was at work, but Slick never mentioned her to me again. Okay, so that tells me a lot about Twitch. Okay. My internet's not great enough for Twitch. Got it. Okay. The Miracle Mile was always filled with interesting people from different walks of life. You could sense the quieter players had a lot of life stories behind their facade of playing free poker in downtown Littleton that they were never going to share, since there were over 100 players at most of the games. It was impossible to know everyone, and some people we didn't want to know anyway. Anthony happened to be one we knew, but really wished we didn't. Then there was Mabel. Mabel was one of those people everyone liked to know. She has a pleasant demeanor with everyone at the bar, and she never missed a Thursday night game, even though she was always out by the first break. Even the young man in the crowd would talk to her for a few minutes and say hi, and they would give her a gentle handshake or just reach. Arena. Sorry. Got a kitty. This is my kitty. Oop. There we go. Oh, let's see. Reach out their hand to her. I thought that was really nice of them to talk to a quiet middle-aged woman. She talked to a lot of players before the tournament and during the breaks. Once she got knocked out, she would sip on her drink at a table and never play in the consolation game. Some of the players would play recklessly, and if they won a few big pots, they would try to make the final tables. If not, they were off to the consolation game to try and win some money. Not Mabel. She was content to hang at the bar and talk, not only to the poker players, but to a lot of the regulars at the bar. One night during a break from the action, Slick casually mentioned to Sam that he used to place a few sports bets. He told Sam that he quit betting on sports because in the ending moments of a game, the kicker could make or break your bet by missing or making an extra point. The control was out of your hands. Slick also said he never understood the bettors that would bet their favorite team if they were favored and won the game, but didn't cover the spread. The bettor was mad. It's no way to live, said Slick. He continued talking about one-line betting and all the pros that they had. Plus, you had to use your credit card. Slick was an old-school bettor. He bet the game on the over/under and only used cash. Sam spoke up and said he felt the exact same way. No school like the old school. He was a big baseball fan and knew pitchers very well. He said he would occasionally place a bet or two in the summer when he had a good read on a pitcher. Slick said, "Do you bet online?" Sam said, "No. I feel the exact same way you do. Cash only, and none of the prop betting." Sam then got up and said, "I want to formally introduce you to someone." Sam started walking toward Mabel, and Slick leaned over and said, "Whoa, Mabel is a book." I said, "What?" "She reads a lot of books." Slick just looked at me and kept walking next to Sam. I wasn't used to this world and didn't understand what was going on. Slick figured out immediately. Mabel was a bookie. Sam said, "Hey, Mabel, I would like to formally introduce you to Chief and Big Slick. Most people just call him Slick. Both are very good friends of mine. Slick may want to have more conversations in the future." Slick later explained to me that Sam just vouched for us, and he would make sure we were good for the money. When Slick explained it, I was thinking, this is like the movie Goodfellas, without the mafia ties. Slick said, "It is a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to talking to you again." She smiled and said, "If you want to talk right now, the Bulls are minus 443. That was shorthand for Thursday night game that was going to start in 30 minutes, and the Buffalo Bills were favored by 4 over the Dolphins, and the over-under bet was 43. It all made sense. She didn't care about the Perk tournament. She was at the Miracle Mile conducting her business. I will probably do one more and call it at that, I think. Alrighty. I was excited when I was invited to play a game in Colorado Springs. I had met one of these guys when I was working in Colorado Springs for the day. Depending on the traffic, it was a 45 to 60-minute drive from Littleton. We were headed to a place around Vetturis. Vetturis is a government contract place, but we were headed to one of their houses. There was a core group of 7 through 8 players who worked there. Vetturis is let's say they are not well known outside of the military community. And no, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And if I'm not, I'm sorry. These guys had a game every 4 to 6 weeks, and it rotated in different houses around the Springs. The setup was a Texas Hold'em style tournament that normally had between 10 to 20 players. The average for most of the tournaments were 16 players, just enough to accommodate 2 tables. I couldn't wait to tell Big Slick that I had RSVP'd both of us for the upcoming game. The plan was to tell him about it when we met for dinner before the game on Thursday night at the Miracle Mile. It was free cheeseburger and fries for us that night, since the week before Slick had placed second at the final table and had won a free dinner voucher. Slick was taking a sip of his iced tea, and I started telling him about the game down in the Springs. He looked at me and shook his head. "I really don't want to drive all the way down to the Springs on a Friday night to play cards." Then he said with a smile, "Of course it must be better than the card charts and Vera the Vanguard." I laughed and said, "Hey, Val's game turned out to be a fun night. I can't help that you would not try any of that great food." Slick and I talked it over and came to an agreement that I needed to find out more about the game to be sure it was legitimate. If it turned out it was legitimate, he was willing to give it a shot and drive down to the Springs. As we were finishing dinner and our conversations, everyone heard Anthony enter the bar. He was so loud people clear across the bar were looking to see who the loudmouth was. But the regulars already knew. "That guy is such a pain," Slick said. "Our mission tonight is to see one of us knock that guy out of the tournament and hear him whine about it." We didn't get a chance to knock Anthony out of the game, but I won the consolation game and had a fistful of 20s. On the way out of the mile, I said to Slick, "I will make you a deal. We'll go down to the Springs early, grab some ribs and brisket at Ruby's barbecue, and I'll pay for it." The second I saw him smirk, I knew he was going. "Done," was all that he said, and said good night. The next time I saw Slick, we were heading to Colorado Springs as you turn off of C-470 and get on Interstate 25 South. You see Pikes Peak at 14,000 plus foot mountain. No matter if you are a native or if you are just in Colorado on vacation, the Rocky Mountains are an amazing sight to behold. Slick suddenly said the name Pike's Peak is a bunch of crap. I looked over at him. What are you talking about? Big Slick said it is named after Lieutenant Zebedon Pike. I knew I would never argue about trivia with Big Slick. However, I was lost. I said, "What's your point?" He went on, "In the early 1800s, old Z. Pike saw this mountain from afar away and declared that no one would ever be able to get to the summit because it was too high and treacherous. That got the mountain named after this dude, and it was a travesty." I asked, "Well, who should it be named after?" Big Slick, never at a loss for words, especially when dealing with trivia, said, "Well, maybe Edwin James, the guy that actually made it to the summit in 1820, or better yet, leave it to the name that the Utes called it, Takawee Mountain." Okay, and I'm not sure I got that right. So that is Taukiew, mountain. All I can say is that Pike had a good marketing team to get his name on the mountain forever. I shook my head, smiled, and said, "You have a good point," and we left it at that. Conversation with Big Slick were never boring. Ruby's barbecue was a little way off the path from the poker game, but we knew it would be worthwhile. We could smell the barbecue from 2 blocks away, and as always, there was a crush of people starting to line up outside of the door. The line moved fast through the vast array of large wash tubs filled with soda and beer. Big Slick grabbed a vanilla root beer and I grabbed a Coke. Right before we got to the counter, we looked over the sides of the huge refrigerator, got a couple of our favorites, mac and cheese and slaw. Then we were ready for the main event. When we got up to the counter, I ordered several different meats, and they were piled high on our red plastic tray. They gave us half a loaf of white bread to go with the meats. I paid, and we made a beeline for the picnic table, in the back next to the huge open windows. If somebody walked by the table, they would not think all of the food was for only 2 people. Before we took one bite, Big Slick started pouring from the printed bottle of sassy sauce, still a favorite non-spicy sauce at Ruby's, on his barbecue. I looked at him and said, "How can a badass like you get a vanilla root beer for your drink and pour sassy sauce on your ribs?" He looked at me and said, "Chief, that is what makes me a badass. I don't care what anyone thinks about how I eat my barbecue and what I have to drink with it. Do you really think anyone is going to walk over here and call me a wussy because of my menu choices?" I said with a laugh, "Probably not." He then devoured his pile of thinly sliced brisket. We proceeded to stuff our faces with ribs, brisket, and hot link sausage. Wowsy! That was some serious barbecue, and that alone was worth the drive down to Colorado Springs. We finished up and got on our way because it was time to play cards. We headed north on I-25, and when we spotted the Air Force Academy, we knew we were getting close to the address my friend had given me. As we walked up to the front of the house, we were greeted by a nice young couple, John and Bobby. Bobby was holding their 4-year-old Peyton. I raised my eyebrow when I heard his name, and Bobby smiled and said they were both huge Bronco fans. Slick and I nodded and smiled at this. We continued inside to find 2 tables set up for what looked like a crowd of 20 players. Each table had 2 boxes of unopened playing cards and nice compressed chips counted and stacked for each player. I shot Slick a glance like they look like they know what they are doing. John explained the rules of the buy-ins, asked if we had any questions before he started introducing us to other players. All the Vectress players made us feel very welcome, and the rest of the players were close friends or family of the Vectress players. Slick and I truly liked every single person that played cards with us that night. It was a fun group of young and old co-workers, family, and neighbors. It was a great group, and we felt fortunate to be invited to join them. They all knew the game. We were competitive and didn't whine about bad bets or losing a hand on the river. They would also quote lines from the movie Rounders. From the second game to the present, Slick always brings a package of Oreos to munch on, and for someone to do their best KGB impression, pick up an Oreo, untwist it, pause for a second, look at the other players, and said, "Take it down." Gradually, it is a terrible impression of John McCulphus doing KGB, but it never gets old. Because of what the Vectress members did for a living, there were strict rules regarding not talking about work at the tables. That made it fun for everyone. We would later become friends with the core group of players and meet each other's families, attend events together, and learn more about each other's careers. However, around the table it was pure poker, and everyone loved it. Slick and I are still close friends with the Vectress players, and we still play cards with the core group when we can. The games got harder to host and became less frequent with everyone's kids growing up. Being in sports and different events, many players have come and gone from the game, but it's always a great time when we get together. The only difference now is when we are around the poker table. Slick and I have a few more stories to share about our casino trips and big stakes poker games we've played. We've had these stories because the casino rewarded our need to play, and games seemed to open up every other week for us. We quickly learned to turn down more games than we played. The Thursday night Miracle Mayo game was written in stone, so we didn't want to be gone too often from home unless it was worth it. Slick's relationship with his wife was such that they enjoyed lots of time together, and he wanted to be with his wife on the weekends. And I had a number of ladies that needed dinner. We learned to turn down the bad games. Most of the games we were invited to were only fair. Some were just bad. Bad people, bad players, or people who didn't take the game seriously, or players who took the game way too seriously. Another sign of a bad game was having a TV on and everyone engaged in a sporting event and not paying attention to the cards. Telling a player that it was their turn all the time isn't the kind of game we wanted to play. It is hard to describe a really good game, but it is easy to describe a bad one. We love that the Vectress games were the good kind, and we loved playing in the Vectress group game. However, that game was down in Colorado Springs, and they only played every couple of months or less. We still went as often as we could, especially since they were very infrequent. Oh, I think my hair is bugging my eye. Yep. Kate's Banana Bread makes 1 loaf or 12 muffins. It can last for an entire all-night game. Cream together ½ cup butter, 3/4 cups sugar. Blend together 1 cup mashed bananas, 2 cups flour, 1 teaspoon soda, ½ teaspoon salt. Add 1 cup chopped nuts, optional, 1 tablespoon lemon juice. Baking instructions. Put in a greased loaf pan and bake at 350 degrees for 50 minutes. If using a muffin pan, place cupcake liners in each cup. Fill up cups and bake for 20 to 25 minutes. Use the toothpicks to test for loaf or muffins. If the toothpick comes up clean, it is done. And I think that is where I'm going to end it for this week. All right. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully I get the Twitch thing figured out soon. If not, I'll keep trying. But thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.